Did China just rug pull the Hong Kong Bitcoin spot ETF? Well, it sounds out there, and literally yesterday I made a video for you guys explaining why the Hong Kong Bitcoin ETF would be incredibly bullish. And we also talked about the German ETF and the UK Bitcoin spot ETF that were also going to be very bullish. And as you can see, things have been looking very positive. And I have speculated in the past that maybe China has been making a pivot into Bitcoin. Okay. But again, this new announcement that came out today proves that maybe I could have been wrong. Okay. We're going to explain all of that, but I want to show you guys why I've been optimistic on China embracing Bitcoin recently. Okay. So this article came out at the beginning of this year. Bruised by the stock market, Chinese rush into Bitcoin. So again, you can see the date on this. This is January 2024. And again, this was showing that there is an enormous amount of capital rushing into Bitcoin despite China banning Bitcoin. We're going to talk about this a little bit more. I'm just going to show you the collection of articles that kind of prove that, hey, you know, it has looked like China was warming up to Bitcoin until today. So again, this article came out on the 15th of April this week. Shock leak reveals China could be about to blow up the price of Bitcoin. I'll tell you what, I love the title of that article. That is that's a big title. I'm not gonna lie. There's obviously, we've seen this data. We've talked about this data. Actually, funny enough, that's a chart that I made right there on Reddit. Someone must have took my chart and slapped it on Reddit. But you can see that Chinese Bitcoin miners came back online in 2021. So we know that still around 20% of the global Bitcoin hash rate is residing in China. And I've been looking at all of these articles and all of these data points recently and saying, look, this looks bullish for Bitcoin. Okay, so we could see that this is the China hash rate coming back online. But then a few articles came out today, which puts a little bit of a dampening on all of the bullishness that I've talked about recently and that has kind of been brewing beneath the surface recently regarding China and Bitcoin. So this came out 2 minutes ago, literally. China crypto ban prevents exposure to Hong Kong's new Bitcoin ETF. Okay, so this is the article I want to show you today. Okay, so the city's regulators have allowed 3 companies to create a Bitcoin spot ETF. Something interesting about these 3 companies who are now allowed to create a Bitcoin spot ETF is the fact that a couple of them are Chinese companies. So again, in the video that we did literally, well, this is 2 days ago, where we looked at the Hong Kong and the German ETFs, we speculated that this was China warming up to Bitcoin. Okay, again, I'm going to tell you guys when I'm wrong. And maybe this most recent development coming out of China today suggests that I could have been wrong. Okay, so let's have a look. So again, coming out today, this article here, it's a couple of different articles have come out. So we also have this article. Hong Kong Bitcoin ETFs not available for Chinese investors. So the news is coming out of Bloomberg, okay? So that is where this whispering and this news source is coming from. So originally, 2 days ago when we did the live stream, we could see here analysts' expectations of as much as $25 billion in fresh demand may have to be tempered. Okay, so that was the article, the headlines we were looking at earlier in the week. Mainland Chinese investors won't likely get the green light to buy the newly launched Hong Kong listed spot Bitcoin ETFs. So Bloomberg is reporting this, okay, which is interesting. And we can see here, mainland China questions. Bitcoin bulls have been looking to Hong Kong ETF approval as perhaps the next big catalyst for higher prices. Indeed, Matrix Port last week suggested funds could see as much as $25 billion of inflows from the Chinese Bitcoin ETF investment. Now, again, this isn't an enormous stretch to expect to see $25 billion coming from these Hong Kong Bitcoin ETFs because we can see how successful the US Bitcoin spot ETFs have been, okay? If I were to try to blow this chart up nice and big for you guys, you can see that already the US Bitcoin spot ETFs have received over $12 billion worth of capital. And this has well exceeded any expectations that were set from the US Bitcoin spot ETFs. Okay, so Bloomberg, everyone, nobody was bullish enough on Bitcoin, on the US Bitcoin spot ETFs. So again, I speculated, hey, if we have Hong Kong Bitcoin ETFs, maybe, just maybe, this is the beginning of the demonetization of the world's largest asset class. So that is obviously the Chinese real estate market. It's around 70 to 80 trillion dollars in size. It is hard to get good data out of China. And in that live stream, I made the case that, hey, this could be bigger than a US Bitcoin spot ETF approval because China controls the second largest amount of wealth. Okay, the US controls the most amount of wealth out of any country around the world. But the China controls the world's largest real estate market. Okay, now I think this capital is more suited for Bitcoin than the wealth held in America because obviously Bitcoin is digital property. China has the world's largest physical property market. It just makes sense. That's the case I made in the video earlier in the week. Okay, but again, we're going to show you all the data points that kind of prove maybe I was off the mark. Maybe China is not going to allow capital flowing into the country. So I'm going to show you two different resources that prove I was wrong. The first is the opinion of the ETF guru, Eric Balchunas. So we can see here, he says, so he's obviously with Bloomberg, right? And he says mainland Chinese investors probably won't be eligible to buy Hong Kong listed spot Bitcoin ETFs. Keyword being probably won't be eligible, okay? So we can see here, there's a couple of reasons to be bearish on this spot ETF that Eric Balchunas points to, okay? So the first here, he says, now for some good news regarding Hong Kong, our asset estimate is now $1 billion of inflows in the first 2 years, okay? Still a long way away from the $25 billion that some people have projected. So Eric Balchunas is saying he expects $1 billion to flow into the Hong Kong ETFs, and that is just simply because the Hong Kong ETF market is significantly smaller than the China ETF market, okay? So we can see down here, he's actually talking about the different companies that have been approved a Bitcoin ETF. So Bosera is one of the companies in China approved to have a Bitcoin ETF. It's an asset management firm. And we can see it has $40 million in assets under management. China AMC is another company that got approved to have a Bitcoin ETF. They have 15 ETFs and $3.6 billion of assets under management. And then the other company is called Harvest. They have 3 ETFs and $10 million of assets under management. And at the very bottom of this tweet that I'm reading out for you guys, Hong Kong's entire ETF market has $51 billion in assets under management, okay? So Eric is saying that around 2% of the total assets under management could potentially flow out of these Hong Kong ETFs and into a Bitcoin spot ETF, okay? Now, Eric has some more data here. So let's dive into Eric's data. Well, actually, I think we've covered all of Eric's data surrounding Hong Kong ETFs. Oh, no, we haven't. So here's the other piece I wanted to show you guys. Okay. So we can see here, retail investors could potentially use the $50,000 remittance quota and apply to buy this ETF. Now, this would apparently be above board for China, for Chinese investors. But Eric says here, but most don't use this investment channel. Okay. For institutional investors, they are unlikely to be approved for virtual asset ETFs despite the absence of clear guidance, okay? So the articles saying definitively Chinese investors cannot buy Hong Kong Bitcoin ETFs like this one and like the other one that we've covered today, no one knows exactly what's happening, okay? So again, these articles saying that China cannot access the Hong Kong ETFs, they're all based upon this Bloomberg study, okay? But we've gone to the source here, and Eric Balchunas is even not 100% clear on it, okay? He has said for institutional investors, it is unlikely to be approved despite the absence of clear guidance, okay? So everything's still up in the air. But another source reporting on this was a company called Wu Blockchain. Okay, again, it's an Asian blockchain company, but you can see they kind of, I'm going to read out a little bit of this article here. Okay, so we can see here that the Hong Kong has allowed approvals of Bitcoin and Ethereum ETFs, physical delivery ETFs, which is big. But we can see the SFC mandates that ETF issuers must trade and custody through compliant exchanges. Okay, so you see these guys actually had a little bit of an interview with the regulators, so to say. So have a look at this video. It's all in Chinese. I'm not going to play the whole thing for you. They did reportedly, they did reportedly stream this interview in Chinese. I might blow it up just so you guys can see that it is true. It's a real interview. It happened, supposedly. So check it out.
那像现在香港就从去年12月到现在，它还是只有这2家 OSL 跟 HP， 其他的都是还是属于这个就拿到。
So it's definitely in Chinese. Apparently, it was translated in via GBTC, but this is the source. This is another source saying, look, it's unlikely that Chinese investors are going to be able to buy the spot Bitcoin ETF. Now, again, this is just unlikely. That's all they're saying. Okay. Out of all of the articles I found, again, I looked for all of them. As you can see, 3 different articles I've looked at here. Hong Kong Bitcoin ETFs likely not available for mainland Chinese investors. They're all sourcing Bloomberg. Okay. And even Bloomberg themselves were not definitive on the matter. Okay. So this is a watch this space question or development for now. Now, before I dive into another video that came out today, that's an interesting one, I want to check on the live chat and get a little bit of a drink. Okay, so Kev asked a really good question about the power law. Okay, so I'm going, and also I want your opinions. I'm sorry I didn't go live yesterday. I was moving apartments. What do you think about the new apartment and the new setup? Let me know if you think it's the same, worse, or better. And while you do that in the chat, I'm going to take a quick drink. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about diminishing returns theory and the power law analysis. So Kev's got a question. What do you think about the power law analysis? Well, funny enough, I actually had an interview with Fred Krueger last week, and I asked him about the power law once again. So I've been asking as many people as I can about the power law recently because I think it's interesting. Now, I'm personally not a power law maximalist, and I actually think all of your models are going to break moving forwards into the future. So stay tuned for the interview with Fred. He's got some strong opinions on it. And, you know, we have differing opinions. So it was a fun little back and forwards interview there with Fred. And I also interviewed Larry Lepard today. So stay tuned for that one. And I asked him about the power law. I did do an interview with Preston over on the Bitcoin News YouTube channel. I cannot find that interview, but it is on the Bitcoin News YouTube channel. Also did a video 4 hours ago talking about the Bitcoin double halving on the Bitcoin News YouTube channel, which Dan M, by the looks of thing, caught it. So Dan says, I was falling for the same diminishing returns theory trap. Good coverage. Thank you for the kind words, Dan. So again, I don't think that the power law is going to hold up because of things like the Bitcoin double halving. Okay, so if you want to know what the double halving is, check out the video that's up on screen right now that I released 4 hours ago. So it's still fresh, it's still new, and it's actually timeless. The double halving is something that emerged 4 years ago. So what's this? All Night Hider doesn't believe that I was on time on today's live stream. It's funny, I actually scheduled today's live stream for 4:20. Tomorrow is the Bitcoin halving, and that well, the Bitcoin halving might actually happen on 4:20. So again, we're full of memes recently. I want to say, I don't think anyone noticed that today's live stream was originally planned for 4:20. Bill Pickford, my man, is talking about the only thing that matters. 163 blocks to go until the Bitcoin halving happens, okay? Again, guys, I think this is massive. I might do a mega live stream tomorrow for you guys for the Bitcoin halving. I know everybody is probably going to have like a mega live stream happening for the Bitcoin halving. Maybe we'll do one if you guys want it. But as you can see, this is what Bill's talking about tomorrow. The most important event in Bitcoin happens, the halving. 1 day and 3 hours away. The Bitcoin halving is happening, and the block reward paid to the Bitcoin miners is going to be cut in half. Okay, so stay tuned for that one. I want to actually see what's going on right now in the Bitcoin mempool and see what's happening in the Bitcoin, because the transaction fees have actually been pretty high recently. So we can see this. We're 99.92% of the way until the next Bitcoin halving. 163 blocks remaining. Around 1 day and 3 hours is when the halving is going to happen. Maybe we'll do a live stream during the halving tomorrow afternoon. So the halving looks like it's going to hit at about 8 p.m. El Salvador time. Maybe I'm going to have to make an effort to be live during the halving. How about that? So let's go back to the questions. I was on time, but it said waiting for you. I'm sorry, Remy, if I was a couple of minutes late. I was scrambling today trying to get a live stream ready because producer Pam has dinner with some friends as of 19 minutes ago. So she's late. She's letting me use her phone for this live stream. So shout out to producer Pam in the chat. You got to thank her in the chat because she wants to go see her friends. So I'm going to have to end this live stream pretty soon, actually. Johnny Midas, hit the like button. Thank you, my friends. Yes, smashing the like button would help this video. So we appreciate all of the love and all of the help. Who else is in the chat? Dan M says it's all FUD. Xi Jinping is Mr. 100. He could be. Now, I actually have another video that I was going to do today for you guys talking about Mr. 100, okay? But it was a little bit, I plan to have about 10 or 20 different tabs. I want to really go down the rabbit hole of exposing who Mr. 100 is because I found a few more data points and resources. And Mr. 100 actually bought 500 Bitcoin recently in 1 day. Okay, so 5x his usual buy. So is Mr. 100 Xi Jinping? Who knows? Maybe. Dan M asks a very, very good question. So speaking of questions, I didn't understand GBTC. Those folks are selling and not buying anything else. Why would they sell? Pay capital gains tax to save 1.2% on taxes. So the reason why I think GBTC is selling Bitcoin is because people have been locked into that product for a long time. So because of the whole Genesis bankruptcy estate and all of the, commingling and contagion in the crypto space last year with BlockFi, Celsius, Genesis, FTX, when all of them blew up, GBTC was involved and caught up in all of the contagion, so to say. Okay, so you have a lot of people holding the GBTC product who want to actually sell and get rid of the product. So once the ETFs launched, they were finally able to sell after, I don't know the exact time frame, but it was like a year where they couldn't actually sell. Okay, so that's why you're seeing a lot of selling from GBTC. And maybe people just feel a little bit burnt by Grayscale, so they would prefer to move into, BlackRock's ETF product, because maybe the perception is that BlackRock's are more trusted. So I hope that answers your question, Remy. Not sure if it does. Okay, guys, I think that's all I got time for you guys today. Have to let our producer Pam go catch up with her friends and give her phone. With all that said, thank you to everyone who tuned in. Stay tuned. Let's keep our finger on the pulse on this China story, because literally today there was a couple of very interesting articles dropped kind of indicating that there's a currency crisis happening in Southeast Asia right now as we speak. So I plan on also going down that rabbit hole. So stay tuned for a live stream on that. Again, if you missed the video released literally 4 hours ago on the Bitcoin News YouTube channel, again, today's live stream was a little bit short, but you can get your dose of Bitcoin content and check out what the Bitcoin double halving is. We might even link that in the description of today's video for you guys watching this one after the fact. But with all that said, absolutely Thank you to everyone who tuned in. I'll see you guys tomorrow. You may or may not get 2 live streams. So stay tuned for that. And thank you so much for tuning in, guys.